Wow! And it is all over! You ready? Let's go!
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of All Day MMA Radio. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't know if that's the title that I'm gonna stick with. It's either gonna be like All Day MMA Radio or the All Day MMA Show. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter too much, but either way, this is gonna be episode 1. It's gonna be a little bit of a tester episode. So in the future, I'll probably shoot for each episode to be maybe 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere around there. But because it's the first episode, because I'm testing everything out with like the audio, the video, the lighting, it'll probably be more so around 30 minutes. I wanted to plan out the episode a little bit as far as like talking points go and all that, but for the most part, it's kind of just going to be a free ball in it. But the main topic that I am going to touch on, the majority of this episode, is going to be UFC 235, which goes down this Saturday, March 2nd. And it is an absolutely stacked card that I am super excited about. We got the return of Jon Bones Jones against Anthony Smith. Honestly, I'm a big fan of Anthony Smith, and everybody, for the most part, in the media and the fans seem to be completely counting him out against Jon Jones. For good reason. Jon Jones is undefeated, aside from the one disqualification, even though pretty much everyone counts that as a victory. And he's been pretty much an impossible puzzle to solve for every fighter that he has come across. But let me remind you guys, that was also the case for a guy named Matt Serra when he fought someone by the name of GSP at UFC 69. So there is a chance. There is that Hail Mary opportunity. It could happen. Anthony Smith does hit hard. He's almost as tall as Jon Jones. His reach isn't quite as long. But there's a possibility. I think if it does happen, if the upset does happen, it will absolutely be in the first round, and Anthony Smith will throw a Hail Mary strike and end the fight via TKO. If that doesn't happen, which it probably won't, then I see Jon Jones dominating the fight and finishing it in the second round. So that's how I see that fight going down. Aside from that, though, like I said, the whole card is absolutely stacked. We have Tyron Woodley once again defending his welterweight title, this time against Kamaru Usman. I'll be honest, that's not the fight I was thinking or hoping UFC would put together. I do like the matchup, but I thought Colby Covington, I'm not a big fan of Colby Covington, at least not his antics, but I think he's absolutely deserving of the fight. And I think the fight sells itself without a doubt. I think the fight would sell and has a lot more of the public's interest than the fight against Usman, for obvious reasons. There's been a little rivalry going on with Colby Covington and his everything he's been doing to promote himself. Whether you love him or hate him, lots of people hate him for what he's been doing, but it works. He's got his name out there. He's got a little feud that's been going on with Tyron Woodley for a while now, and I think, along with many other people, it seems that that should have been the fight that was made first. Makes all the sense in the world. Like I said, the fight would have sold itself if it was the main event. And you're comparing Tyron Woodley versus Colby Covington to Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman, and Jon Jones wasn't on the card. That was the main fight that was selling the pay-per-views. I think without a doubt, the Colby Covington-Tyron Woodley fight would sell more than the Tyron Woodley-Kamaru Usman fight. But that's besides the point. That's not happening for whatever reason, and here we are with another good fight, Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman. They're similar fighters in a lot of ways, but in my opinion, Tyron Woodley holds on to the strap, and I think he'll be eventually maybe another fight. He's mentioned quite a few times that he still wants that Colby Covington fight. I think that is what will happen next, unless in the meantime Colby Covington pisses off Dana White so much that eventually he gets cut from the UFC before he gets his title shot against Tyron Woodley. And at this rate, that's not out of the realm of possibility. If you check out a video that I just uploaded on the All Day MMA channel this morning, I believe, Colby Covington was actually carrying his interim title around Las Vegas. He was at the Palms Casino looking for Dana White to confront Dana White and ask him why he wasn't getting his title shot this weekend at UFC 235. And eventually he did find Dana White. So if you haven't seen the video, make sure to check it out on our YouTube channel. It's entertaining to say the least. So Dana White didn't seem to be too happy about that. So like I said, it is a possibility that Colby Covington will get cut or something else crazy will happen and he'll never end up getting that shot. But my fight prediction for the Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman fight is, I think we'll go to a decision, but I think it will be a clear-cut decision that will ultimately go Tyron Woodley's way. Maybe I would say 49-46 would be my guess. And then eventually, I think after that fight, Tyron Woodley fights Colby Covington if he's still in the UFC. If he's not, I think he moves to 185 to pave the way for his buddy who's fighting right underneath him, Ben Askren. So that's the next fight we're going to talk about. Ben Askren finally makes his long-awaited debut in the UFC against none other than the hard-hitting legend Robbie Lawler. Now, if you booked this fight a couple years ago when he was in the midst of his latest career resurgence, and he had his 2 fights against Johnny Hendricks, and he had his fights against Rory McDonald, I think it would be a very, very interesting fight. I think Ben Askren will absolutely have his hands full. I'm not saying he still doesn't. I think there's a chance that Askren gets caught with something. Robbie Lawler still absolutely, without a doubt, packs a lot of power. But honestly, in his last few fights, he hasn't looked too good. So I see Ben Askren eventually wearing him down. And once he gets him down, I don't really see Robbie Lawler putting up too much of a fight or getting up, especially after watching this fight against RDA, which, take from what you will, I believe that Robbie hurt his foot or ankle at some point during that fight, and that may have contributed to how he looked in the fight. But I don't really think that's going to come into a factor in this fight. I think Ben Askren's going to get him down, hold him down, and kind of just have his way with Robbie Lawler. So I see that fight going to decision as well, but I think it will be another clear-cut, pretty dominant decision, and it will be a good way for Ben Askren to kind of introduce himself to the UFC fan base. Without a doubt, he's if you guys have watched any of his recent interviews during Media Day or the build-up to UFC 235, he's a very entertaining guy. He's a polarizing character. His interviews are always entertaining. He has a lot to say. He's been calling out a lot of people in the welterweight division, so there should be, as long as everything goes well on Saturday with him against Robbie, there should be a lot of good fights for him in the future. And like I said not too long ago, Tyron Woodley has mentioned quite a few times that eventually he sees himself moving up to 185. And that's basically, he's already cleared out a lot of division, but another big part of it is to give Ben Askren his shot at the 170 title, because they've been best friends for quite a while now. So that's how I see both those fights going down, and that's also how I see the future of the welterweight division kind of panning out in the next couple years. After those first 3 fights, we have Tecia Torres against Weili Zhang from China. She's 18-1, and she is a finisher. I believe every single one of her fights, minus maybe 3, have resulted in finishes. Her debut in the UFC, she fought Jessica Aguilar, and she won by, it was a first round finish, I believe, by armbar. So she's a finisher. She's a very exciting fighter to watch. She has kind of a similar build to Tecia Torres, maybe a little bit bigger. They both bring a ton of energy, and they're both very entertaining fighters. Like I said, I haven't seen too much of Zhang, but what I have seen has been, I've watched some highlight videos, some clips, and she looks like a very entertaining fighter. And like I just mentioned, she is a finisher. So I'm absolutely looking forward to that fight. That one's tough to predict. Without a doubt, Tecia Torres has fought the harder competition. She's 10-3, I believe, so she doesn't have quite as many fights. But like I just said, she's without a doubt fought the harder opponents. So it's tough to say how that one's going to go down. If I had to make a prediction, something's telling me that Zhang is going to come away with the victory. I think it will be a decision. So maybe even a split decision. I think it will be a close fight, but I think at the end, Zhang will get her hand raised. I'll say split decision. So Either way, I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight and a fun one to watch, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. Coming up after that is, continuing with this crazy stacked card, the return of Cody Garbrandt, and he faces Pedro Munoz. Munoz? Is that right? I hope I'm not butchering too many of these names, but personally, I'm really stoked for the return of Cody Garbrandt. I'm a Team Alpha Male guy. You see right here, I'm wearing my one of my many Uriah Faber walkout shirts. Don't remember exactly what fight this one's from, but you can also see got the little Uriah Faber action figure right up there from the WEC days. And I've always been a Team Alpha Male guy. I'm a Chad Mendes fan. Was a am a Joe Benavidez fan. TJ Dillashaw, even though he's not with Team Alpha Male, and they had that big feud, I'm a TJ Dillashaw fan as well. So I've always been a fan of the camp. Originally, when I first got into MMA, was this is going off topic, but let me just throw this out here real quick so you guys kind of get my origin story with MMA a little bit. When I first got into MMA, it was over a decade ago when the WEC was still around, and it was pretty big back then. I believe, I don't remember if it was on Fuel TV or what, but my two favorite fighters when I first got into MMA were Uriah Faber, who's right there like I just pointed to, and then Carlos Condit, who's right next to him. So those were my guys back in the day. Both of them were doing amazing in the WEC. They were both champs, and they were both pretty dominant champs. So that's a big reason why I got into MMA. I believe that had to be like 12 or so years ago. And ever since, I've been completely obsessed. I don't believe I missed a single UFC event in the past 10 years, which sounds crazy. I may not have seen all of them live, but I always watched them the next day if I missed them live. So you could absolutely say I'm 100% obsessed with the sport. I also got one of my GSPs right here for obvious reasons. He just retired, as many of you probably know, and in my opinion, he's probably the greatest of all time, an absolute legend of the sport. So congratulations on his retirement. Anyways, though, back to the fights. Coming up next, like I just said, Cody Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz. I watched the pre-fight press conference, and it was entertaining between those two. There was absolutely no bad blood at all, which is kind of refreshing after watching all the bad blood between Cody and TJ with their previous two fights. They're both very entertaining fights. Tough to watch though, man. I'm a fan of both. I kind of wanted Cody to win, especially the second fight. And he kind of had TJ right where he wanted him. He actually hurt him in both fights. He got over anxious, overzealous, and ended up getting finished. So either way, I'm very curious, and I cannot wait to watch his return, see what he looks like after those two hard losses. I think it'll be a good fight. Pedro Munoz is absolutely no slouch himself. He's a good fighter. But Cody hits hard. And I think he's going to find Pedro's chin, and I think he's going to win by knockout I'm going to say in the first round. So, either way, once again, it's going to be another entertaining fight, which is kind of the theme of this card, at least in my mind. Sometimes the cards that you think are going to be the most entertaining ones, and they look the most entertaining on paper, they're always stacked with entertaining fighters. Unfortunately, sometimes they end up being snooze fests. I don't think that's going to be the case with 235, though. I have a really good feeling that this is going to be an entertaining, action-packed card, so hopefully I'm not wrong about that. Anyways, after that fight, another highly anticipated one between Jeremy Stephens, who's also a very hard hitter himself, and one of the guys that has a huge hype train behind him. A ton of people have been talking about him for a while now. He's a very big prospect, and his name is Zabit I don't want to mess this one up. Magomed Sharipov. That's going to be a good fight. Another thing about that fight, if you have not seen the video on our YouTube channel, I think I posted it yesterday maybe. There was a little awkward backstage confrontation between the two. It's entertaining. Nothing crazy happened, but it's definitely an entertaining video. So if you want to check that out, it's posted on our YouTube channel. I'll put a link below for both that video and the Colby Covington and Dana White video. So if you're interested in either of those, the link will be below. Anyways, that fight, if nothing else, it should give us a very good indication of exactly where Zabit is at. Is the hype justified? He's looked really good in his UFC fights and all his other fights up to this point, but he, without a doubt, has not faced the level of competition of a Jeremy Stephens yet. Jeremy hits hard. He has the capability, I think, on any given day to knock out his opponent. His last fight with Jose Aldo, it was a tough one. I think Jose is still one of the best fighters in the UFC. I think Max Holloway is just a horrible matchup for him, even though Jose looked really good in the first couple rounds of both those fights. He just doesn't have the cardio or the pace to match up well with Max. And honestly, I think Max is a bad matchup for the majority of people in the 145 and 155 divisions. With that said, I think Jose is still, I'd probably pick him over the majority of fighters at 145, maybe even at 155. So I can't really knock Jeremy Stephens too much for losing that fight. I think he's going to give Zabit a good fight in the beginning, but if I had to make a prediction, I think Zabit's going to win a decision. I think he's going to frustrate Jeremy with his length, his reach, and he has a ton of variety to his striking game, and I think that throws a lot of his opponents off balance. There's a lot of strikes he throws that his opponents don't see coming. I think that will be the case with Jeremy Stephens. I think Jeremy might catch him a couple times, but I don't think he'll land that knockout shot, and I think eventually he'll get super frustrated. He'll be chasing Zabit around the cage the whole time, and Zabit's just kind of pick him apart, and ultimately he's going to win a unanimous decision. After that fight, the last one I'm going to talk about for this card is going to be Misha Cirkunov and my man, who I'm extremely hyped about. I'm 100% on his hype train, Johnny Walker. His last two fights have been absolutely electrifying. His elbow that he landed versus Roundtree was just incredible, especially after what Roundtree did to the legendary kickboxer Gokhan Saki. Johnny Walker is an entertaining dude. He's huge, and what I'm most excited about, his two last fights, he's looked incredible. His last fight, he came really, really close to landing an illegal. He pretty much had the fight finished. He had that crazy, it wasn't really spinning back fist. He had that crazy spinning back fist knockdown. And then when he was going for the finish, he threw a kick that was about this close to hitting his opponent in the head, and unfortunately would have DQ'd him. Thankfully, it didn't land. He finished the fight with a few follow-up shots a couple seconds after that, and it resulted in another extremely entertaining finish. So that's been kind of the case so far with Johnny Walker in the UFC. He's a very entertaining guy, both the way he fights and he has an extremely entertaining personality. So if you've seen him on the mic in any of his post-fight interviews or maybe any interviews leading up to his previous fights, it's pretty obvious, at least to me, that he has a lot of potential in the UFC as far as star power goes. He's really entertaining. He's got a really, really marketable personality. And to me, I'm super excited about the potential of this guy because he's huge. Yesterday, I saw a picture of him standing next to Johnny Bones Jones, and he actually looked like he was a little bit bigger than Jones. He's a flashy striker. He throws a lot of power, and I'm not exactly sure how his ground game looks, but he's a very, very, very exciting prospect. So I'm super excited to see how he looks against Misha on Saturday. And if all goes well, if he does what I think he will, which I think he'll come away with the victory, then I don't think there's too many fights before they're going to match him up against Johnny Bones. Maybe, I think the next shot, as long as John Jones defeats Anthony Smith on Saturday, I think up next should either be Thiago Santos, which I'm guessing who the UFC will probably pick, and then after that, probably Dominic Reyes, and then I think Johnny Walker should get his shot unless he loses between now and then. But as long as everything goes well, I see Johnny Walker eventually getting that shot, and I think Johnny Walker and Dominic Reyes have the best chance, without a doubt, to finally beat John Jones. So I'm very, very, very excited to see how Johnny Walker looks on Saturday. He's looked great in his previous two fights. I see much of the same happening this Saturday, and I think he'll come away with another flashy, devastating, and entertaining knockout in I'll say this time it will take 2 rounds. So in the second round, KO, and then his victory dance. I don't know if you guys saw his last one. He did the worm. He did a couple other things. It was really entertaining. Then his post-fight interview, good times as well. So I'm looking forward to that also. Anyways, there you go. That's my predictions for UFC 235, which goes down this Saturday in Las Vegas at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned. It's a stacked card. A lot of good fights. There's two titles up for grabs. And the entire main card, along with some of the undercard, the majority of the undercard, is absolutely stacked with good, entertaining fighters. This is the card I've been looking forward to, probably more so than any other card the past couple months. So if you can't tell by now, I'm super stoked and super excited about Saturday. Can't wait. Still got another day I got to make it through, but man, I'm looking forward to this one. I hope you guys are as well. Thanks for tuning in to episode 1. Like I said, this is kind of like a tester episode for the new podcast that will become a regular thing on this channel. I'm going to try and do probably an episode a week, and I'll try and keep it somewhat consistent. So today, obviously, it's Friday. I'm thinking I might start doing, we'll see. My goal is to maybe upload every Wednesday, so a new episode every Wednesday. But everything's in the testing phase right now. I got to see how the audio turns out for this, the lighting, how the video looks, what the feedback is. If something suck, you guys let me know. I'll try and improve upon those for future episodes, and we will go from there. Anyways, that's a wrap for episode 1. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening. If you got any feedback, make sure to drop your questions or comments below. I'll do my best to get to those. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the fights, and I will catch you in the next episode.
My goodness! Oh my God! Just like that! That is some serious power!